Our parashah this week is Noach. Noach means rest. Our scriptures that we have studied this week are taken from the book of Genesis, starting in chapter 6, verse 9, and to chapter 11, verse 32. Our Haftarah portion that goes along with this is from Isaiah 54, verse 1, to Isaiah 55, verse 5. And our Brit portion comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 36 through 46. As I mentioned, Noach means rest, but not the rest of sleep. Noah's name doesn't mean let's go to bed. But it comes from the removal of the curse of the earth. And it's because of what Lamech, which was Noah's father, was desiring when Noah was born. Lamech longed for the fulfillment of the promise that God had given to Adam and Eve of the return of the earth to a garden state that it was before the fall. Because since the fall of man, the earth was getting increasingly harsh and harder to work and to bring forth food from. Because we don't realize that when sin entered the earth, it didn't just corrupt man, but it corrupted the earth itself. And we can find this when we look back in the portion of last week of Bereshit, when we look back at Genesis 3, 17 through 19, where it states, "Then to the man he said, because you listened to your wife's voice, and ate of the tree which I commanded you, saying, you must not eat of, cursed is the ground because of you." So the ground, the very fields that man will have to bring forth his food from, that he will have to labor over in order to gain the food from, is already cursed. And how is it cursed? The scriptures continues that with pain will you eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles will sprout for you. You will eat the plants of the field. The ground not only will produce the fruit or the grain or those things that was necessary for the sustenance of man, but intermixed with that will be thorns, weeds, thistles, things that you have to separate. You have to keep from growing in between. You have to labor at in order to make the good crop grow. It's by the sweat of your brow will you eat food until you return to the ground, since from it were you taken, for you are dust, and to dust will you return. No longer will Adam just be able to, as it stated in the beginning, tend the garden, which was mainly oversee the garden, but now Adam has to work the garden. It's a different word. It means hard labor. It means labor that produces sweat, exertion, pain. It's not easy. And to think of the exertion that Adam had to endure at the beginning of it, being multiplied as the evilness of mankind progressively gets worse through time, till you come into the generation of Noah. And you understand why Lamech, Noah's father, when he named him, was hoping that his son would see the generation of rest. Rest, that the world would be back as it was in the beginning. This is Noach's name. Man's sin had created this situation. And once removed from the garden, the depravity of man grew, and the harshness of living grew at the same rate. And with the increase of wickedness on the earth, the land became increasingly reluctant to bring forth the fruit. Genesis 6:5 states, Then Adonai saw the wickedness of humankind was great on the earth, and every inclination of the heart was only evil all the time. And the most amazing thing is what the Lord states, that Adonai regretted that he made humankind on the earth, and his heart was deeply pained. But this is what led to the declaration that the Lord made to Noach in Genesis 6:13. And then God said to Noah, the end of all flesh is coming before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. Now God isn't referring to man himself. He's saying the earth, the very ground that you walk on, is filled with violence. So there is even nothing good to bring forth from the earth because of man. Behold, I am about to bring ruin upon them, along with the land. God is ready to destroy the earth in order to cleanse it from the effects of sin upon it. It is now that we must see, as Noach's father saw, Lamech lived on the earth that was so infected with evilness that the very dirt of the field rebelled against man. Perversion so rampant that the knowledge of God of the creation was forgotten. Lamech was a God-fearing man who desired to see the name of God exalted upon the earth and the return of all things back unto the way that they were before the fall. Thus he names his son Noach, and hoped that the promise of reconciliation of all things would happen within his son's lifetime, and the life would be in harmony with his Creator once again, and therefore man and the earth would truly find rest. Noach is a redemption story, a recreation account. Just as the earth was brought forth from the waters of the deep in the creation account, the earth is returned to the deep in order to be brought back, renewed, recreated, cleansed from the wickedness of man's sin. Yet, men are not fully destroyed. The creatures are not fully destroyed, all of which were affected by the fall of Adam, because God has great mercy on the greatest of his creation, man. We must remember that God personally created us. He didn't speak us forth, and there we were. In fact, God put thought into us before he brought us forth. It states in Genesis that the Lord said to the Lord, let us make man in our image. That shows thoughtfulness. That shows personal involvement. It shows something greater than just, and the Lord spoke light, and light was. And the Lord said, let the dry earth separate from the seas, and it was. It was greater than God saying, now let the fowl of the air and the fish of the sea be within the waters of the earth and the firmament of the sky, and it was. It's greater than that. It isn't a statement. It's a concept. It's a purpose. And then it says that he took his hands and he formed us from the dust of the earth. Therefore, we're tied to the earth. Therefore, our presence, his presence in us and our presence on the earth creates holiness in the earth. It's all tied together. This is why when man fell from grace, that the earth fell from grace as well. This is why, even though we have such beauty in the nature of the earth, there is still such ugliness in the nature of the earth. Imagine if we say that a sunset is beautiful, or a view from a mountain is awesome and majestic. Imagine the way it appeared before the fall, when it was clearly perfect. It's unimaginable. We don't have anything to judge it against. The concept alone can blow your mind. But see, this is the rest that Lamech was seeking. Lamech was hoping Noah would find. We're not talking that many generations from creation. And yet humanity was so deprived and the earth was so filled with wickedness that righteous people mourned for living on the face of the earth and looked to find that rest that would come with the return of God's presence on the earth. And this is where we find Noah. And the scriptures tell us that Noah was found righteous in his generation. And if we look at that and examine that, we understand that if Noah had lived a generation before, in his father's generation, maybe God would not have chosen him. Or if Noah had lived after the flood and lived in Abraham's generation, he would not have been found righteous to be used by God. But it also makes us understand that God sees us as we are today, how we affect our earth in our generation. Will we be ones who are bringing rest to the earth, or will we be those who participate in the unrest of the earth? Will we be those in whom the salvation of things are being brought about through, or will be those by which they will perish because of the judgment of God? And this is not a new story. This is why when we get the Haftarah portion in Isaiah, Isaiah is speaking to Judah concerning her exile. Judah had rebelled against her God. She had become perverse before her God. She had become rebellious. Judah was also part of God's greatest creation, his chosen treasure among all the peoples of the earth. And he judged them. But yet he makes the promise, doesn't he? To redeem them, to bring them back. Just like Noah. Noah was chosen out of all of humanity to carry out the mission given to Adam in the garden. Adam's mission was to go forth and multiply, to cover all the earth, to sanctify the ground, to make it a place where the presence of God was always welcome, that relationship between man and God and the earth is one. But Adam failed. And now God says, Noah, I'm going to give you a second chance. And Noah and his 3 sons and their wives are the ones who are given the command to again go forth and multiply and take dominion of the earth and bring righteousness and justice upon the face of the earth. That will bring back my presence. And even in this parashah, we see how even after a few generations from Noah, man fails again with the Tower of Babel. Man cannot stand to think he has to be subjugated by his Creator. And yet again, God goes forth in history. And we will find in the next parashah where Abraham comes into the picture. God does not give up on his greatest creation, but he continues to look to those who are willing to be those that are considered righteous in their generations, that he can use to go forth and continue to bring the reconciliation of his plan of rest upon the earth. Just as in the Haftarah portion, Adonai promises rest to Israel despite her rebellious ways. His covenant cannot be broken because it is God himself who institutes and keeps it. It isn't dependent on humankind. It never has been dependent on humankind because God knows humankind can break it. They can fail. Isaiah 54:9-10 states, "For this is like the waters of Noach to me. For as I swore that the waters of Noach should no more cover the earth, so I have sworn that I will not be angry with you, nor will I rebuke you. Though the mountains depart and the hills be shaken, my love will not depart from you, nor will my covenant of peace be shaken, says Adonai, who has compassion on you." As God swore to Noah that he would never punish the earth for man's sins anymore, God will never punish Israel for their sins anymore. His covenant of peace will continue. He has compassion on them. It does not mean he will not judge them or discipline them, but it says that he will never depart from them. Adonai promises rest to Israel despite their rebellious ways. His covenant cannot be broken, like I said, because it is God himself who institutes and keeps it. Just as God decided to start all over again with Noach and his 3 sons, remembering his covenant with Noah, despite the fact that mankind again rebels against God, attempting to make war upon their Creator. Man, again, never knowing rest for his selfish ambitions and his imperfection of ways were more important than that peace which God has offered to all men through his covenant. Abraham, and through his descendants, promises to bring rest for them and all humanity and the earth through a future event. This is where God's true rest appears, Messiah, Yeshua. And despite the fact that the prevalence of wickedness and rebellion on the earth today, those who are in covenant with God through Yeshua have access to the rest that God has promised on this earth, Messiah. Matthew 24:37-39 states, "For just as in the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For in those days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark. And then they did not even understand until the flood came and swept them all away. So shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man." Think about it. Noah worked on the ark for 100 years. You talk about a construction project. 100 years he proclaimed to everyone that come near him, the earth is going to be destroyed and everything in it unless you repent and turn back to God. Come and enter into the ark of salvation that the Lord is building. And after 100 years, still the only ones that could enter into that ark were Noah and his 3 sons. 8 people. 8, the number of Messiah. The ark, the symbol of salvation. And today, almost 2,000 years since the advent of our Messiah, with the knowledge of the gospel, of the good news of the rest that God gives to mankind, there are still those, as it says, they're eating, they're drinking, they're marrying and giving in marriage. And yet the wickedness and the perversion and the immorality of the society is getting increasingly worse. It's not getting better. Is it? But yet mankind, everything you ever hear about is finding this rest, finding this peace. Find yourself. Know who you are. Be who you want to be. But it's never enough. It's never enough because we can never be what we were created to be until we accept the fact that we need to come before our Creator and live for Him. This is the whole point.
Up to the point where they never experience rain, right?
Of God's rest. In God there is satisfaction, contentment, security, prosperity. Not in the way we look at things, not in the way, well, I've got all these things and you don't have these things, or, you know, I've got this security system in my house and you don't know. The security and the prosperity of God is the fact and the knowledge to know that you can never be separated from the one that created you. That is a secure thing. No one can separate you from the love of God when you have taken the love of God and accepted that sacrifice of Messiah. And the prosperity comes from the fact that you have everything that you will need eternally. Money doesn't transfer to heaven. Checkbooks don't transfer to heaven. Credit cards cannot be used in heaven. No matter what you think, if you stick it in the coffin, it'll just rot in there with your body. The true prosperity comes from the fact that you receive that reward that is given to you when your Creator and your Savior say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Come and enter into my rest." That is the rest that Noach was looking for, that his father Lamech was looking for, that Judah was looking for in his exile, and that even in the time of our Lord, the people were looking for. Because no matter what they had, no matter what government they had over them, no matter who was in authority over them, they never could have that security. They never could have that peace. Because God was not in the control of it. This is the rest that we have as His, because we are not subjugated to the things of this world. We belong to Him. Therefore, we should act like Him in our actions. We should speak out to those things that are against His Word. We should stand for His righteousness and His holiness. We should seek to give to others the rest that we have in our souls, the rest that cannot be taken. That's eternal. That's what we are here for. That is our purpose. We're the continuation of Abraham, where God said, "In you all the nations will be blessed." How? Because from you will come forth the one who will bring the eternal rest back to the earth. And therefore, all of creation will be able to rest in God again. And we are the living remnants of that. We are the ones that are spoken of in the passage we read earlier in the Gospel of Matthew, who are in that day when He comes again. No man knoweth, just like no one knew when the flood would happen. But guess what? Noah was taken up into the ark and removed from the judgment of the earth. We will be removed from the judgment of those who have refused the rest of God. That's the difference. It's the only difference. Remember, it's because we're judged according to the righteousness that we have emanated in our lifetime against those that we live with. And even that still is His. Because only He can make us righteous. But in that we have rest. When we worry about what folks think, when we ponder on why circumstances happen, what gives us contentment and peace, but knowing that we can rest in Him. I will never leave you nor forsake you. That's His promise. And He promises to come back and take us to Himself. And to truly be, and we will never be from His presence again. But in that day, we will see the fulfillment of what was given to Adam in the beginning. You will see where then man will take dominion over the earth, the redeemed earth, and multiply and flourish, and there shall be peace with God, man, and creation, because it will be as it was in the beginning. We will have rest. That's the message of hope. It's not a message of condemnation. It's a message that folks need to hear. I don't care how much you mantra chant, how much yoga you do, how much marijuana you think you can smoke to make yourself feel better. If it really worked, everyone would be doing it. But it doesn't. The only thing that works to bring peace and rest to the soul of man, to satisfy his aspirations and his life, is that relationship that comes from his Creator and his Messiah, Yeshua.